Today we are going over A Course in Miracles, Chapter 2, Section 5, The Function of the Miracle Worker. And this section is twice as long as previous sections, but I feel like it's a little more straightforward and I don't have to stop and rehash stuff as much. So we're going to try and do the whole thing in one video and hopefully it won't be an hour long. Okay, paragraph 1. Before miracle workers are ready to undertake their function in this world, it is essential that they fully understand the fear of release. And we all want to be miracle workers, right? Don't we all want that title of being a miracle worker? So before the miracle workers are ready to undertake their function in this world, it is essential that they fully understand the fear of release. Otherwise, they may unwittingly foster the belief that release is imprisonment, a belief that is already very prevalent. This misperception arises in turn from the belief that harm can be limited to the body. I think of the little kid rhyme, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. So the misperception that release is imprisonment is in turn stems from the belief that harm can be limited to the body. That is because of the underlying fear that the mind can hurt itself. So we don't want to believe that the mind can hurt itself. We want to believe that only bodies can hurt other bodies, but not that our minds actually have the power to be as destructive as they can be. None of these errors is meaningful because the miscreations of the mind do not really exist. Anything that's not truly created by a healed mind actually exists. But they sure feel like they exist because when we believe in something, we give it we give it reality in our own minds. This recognition that the miscreations of the mind do not really exist. This recognition is a far better protective device than any form of level confusion because it introduces correction at the level of the error. So we talked about this in the last section where there's this level confusion where we either believe that our mind can actually do real damage in our bodies that then has to be fixed on the body level, or that our bodies can somehow do damage in our minds. And neither of those are true. Okay. Go back and listen to the previous section if I'm not going to rehash that here because we have a lot to get through today. It is essential to remember that only the mind can create and that correction belongs at the thought level. To amplify an earlier statement, spirit is already perfect and therefore does not require correction. The body does not exist except as a learning device for the mind. This learning device is not subject to errors of its own because it cannot create. It is obvious then that inducing the mind to give up its miscreations is the only application of creative ability that is truly meaningful. So if you're trying to correct the spirit, it's already perfect. No need to correct. If you're trying to correct the body, it's just a neutral learning device. It's a lump of clay. It's only responding to the miscreations of your mind. So really the only way to use your creative abilities in a way that's actually meaningful is to use it to heal the miscreations of your mind. Paragraph 2. Magic is the mindless or the miscreative use of the mind. Physical medications are forms of spells, as that in quotes, spells. But if you are afraid to use the mind to heal, you should not attempt to do so. The very fact that you are afraid makes your mind vulnerable to miscreation. And again, we went over this in the last section, so I'm not going to delve deep into this. We're just breezing through. You are therefore likely to misunderstand any healing that might occur, and because egocentricity and fear usually occur together, you may be unable to accept the real source of the healing. And source is a capital S. So the real source of the healing, if we If we are afraid and we're trying to heal ourselves with our mind, like we're supposed to, but we're doing it from a place of fear, if we do actually experience some physical healing, it'll likely be tied to the ego. And so we will start to, it will feed our ego instead of feeding our connection to spirit, which will cause bigger problems further down the road. So don't try and heal yourself from a place of fear. Under these conditions, it is safer for you to rely temporarily on physical healing devices because you cannot misperceive them as your own creations. You can't take credit for it, basically. As long as your sense of vulnerability persists, you should not attempt to perform miracles. Paragraph 3. I have already said that miracles are expressions of miracle mindedness, and miracle mindedness means right mindedness. The right minded neither exalt nor depreciate the mind of the miracle worker or the miracle receiver. So when you are in your right mind, you neither exalt nor depreciate the minds of your own mind or the minds of others. However, as a correction, the miracle need not await the right mindedness of the receiver. In fact, its purpose is to restore him to his right mind. It is essential, however, that the miracle worker be in his right mind, however briefly, or he will be unable to reestablish right mindedness in someone else. And that was comforting because at the very end of the previous paragraph, it said, as long as your sense of vulnerability persists, you should not attempt to perform miracles. And I thought, well, how many of us feel totally invulnerable? I don't. I still don't feel completely invulnerable. And I think none of us will because this just barely came to me, but in one of our previous sections, it talked about how the complete atonement stands at the end of time. So we have phases of atonement, right? We talked about that. There are phases of atonement while we're in time, but the whole atonement stands at time's end. And that is when we will be completely invulnerable to any kind of fear. So I think in this life, while we're still in time, we're never going to be completely invulnerable. So then it feels like, well, so then none of us can perform miracles. But I love how this one says, it is essential that the miracle worker be in his right mind, however briefly, or he will be unable to reestablish right-mindedness in someone else. So that moment of invulnerability can be just a moment. It can be a brief period of time where you are in your right mind. You are thinking clearly and correctly. And then you'll probably go back to thinking incorrectly and having some miscreations and illusions, but for at least a moment, you were invulnerable and you could share that with somebody else and help correct their wrong-mindedness. Paragraph 4. The healer who relies on his own readiness is endangering his understanding. You are perfectly safe as long as you are completely unconcerned about your readiness, but maintain a consistent trust in mine. And that made me think about back in chapter 1, in section 3, paragraph 4. It says, and this is Christ speaking, I am the only one who can perform miracles indiscriminately because I am the atonement. You have a role in the atonement which I will dictate to you. Ask me which miracles you should perform. This spares you needless effort because you will be acting under direct communication. The impersonal nature of the miracle is an essential ingredient because it enables me to direct its application, and under my guidance, miracles lead to the highly personal experience of revelation. Okay, so anyway, you don't need to be ready. Like, don't worry about your readiness. I guess, in a sense, we do need to be ready because we have to have that, at least a moment, right? A brief moment of being in our right mind. So we do need to be ready, but it says you are perfectly safe as long as you are completely unconcerned about your own readiness. It's not like this guilt and this pressure and this, oh, I need to be ready. It's you're unconcerned and you trust, you maintain a consistent trust in Christ's readiness because he's the one that's going to direct you and guiding you and doing these miracles. And he knows when you're ready. So just trust that he knows and go about, working on your own healing. If your miracle working inclinations are not functioning properly, it is always because fear has intruded on your right-mindedness and has turned it upside down. All forms of not right-mindedness are the result of refusal to accept the atonement for yourself. All forms of not right-mindedness are the result of refusal to accept the atonement for yourself. If you do accept it, you are in a position to recognize that those who need healing are simply those who have not realized that right-mindedness is healing. So remember, healing isn't something we do at the body level. It's something we have to do at the mind level. If you do accept the atonement, which is undoing all of your own wrong-mindedness, right? So if you accept the atonement, then you'll be able to see, oh, these people don't need this physical thing or that physical thing or whatever. They just need the atonement. They just need to heal their minds. And paragraph 5. And this whole sentence is italicized. So this isn't just me emphasizing this sentence. This is like the text wanting you to listen up and pay attention. The sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the atonement for himself. You know I have to read that again. The sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the atonement for himself. That is your only job. It is your one job. Your one responsibility is to accept the atonement for yourself. Because if you can do that, then you'll be able to share that with others. And that is the whole purpose. That is why we're here. And the whole atonement stands at time's end, right? So the sooner we can get these phases of atonement going, the sooner we get to the end where everyone is guaranteed to accept the atonement. Remember that from our last video, or maybe it was two sections ago. Everyone is guaranteed to accept the atonement eventually. So the sooner you accept it for yourself, the more you can be that miracle worker that helps others to correct in themselves through accepting the atonement. Your sole responsibility. No special, acts of service or sacrifices or whatever. Your only responsibility is to accept the atonement for yourself. So get on that. I'm speaking to myself as well. This means you recognize that mind is the only creative level and that its errors are healed by the atonement. Once you accept this, your mind can only heal. Once you accept that the mind is the only creative level and that all healing has to happen there and it only happens through the atonement. Once you accept that, your mind can only heal other people. By denying your mind any destructive potential and reinstating its purely constructive powers, you place yourself in a position to undo the level confusion of others. The message you then give to them is the truth, that their minds are similarly constructive and their miscreations cannot hurt them. By affirming this, you release the mind from over-evaluating its own learning device, which is the body. The body is the learning device of the mind, and restore the mind to its true position as the learner. Paragraph 6. It should be emphasized again that the body does not learn any more than it creates. As a learning device, it merely follows the learner, which is the mind. But if it is falsely endowed with self-initiative, it becomes a serious obstruction to the very learning it should facilitate. So if we think that our bodies are the things taking initiative and we like reduce the power of the mind and think that the mind has nothing to do with it and it's all the body, then it's actually blocking the learning that it's supposed to be facilitating. Only the mind is capable of illumination. Spirit is already illuminated, and the body in itself is too dense. The mind, however, can bring its illumination to the body by recognizing that it is not the learner, that the body is not the learner, and is therefore unamenable to learning. So your body can't learn. It's only our minds that can learn things. Our bodies can't learn things. The body is, however, easily brought into alignment with a mind that has learned to look beyond it toward the light. So remember our bodies as this lump of clay. It just does whatever the mind directs it to do. It just responds to whatever the mind is thinking and whatever the mind believes about itself. So when the mind can look beyond the body and like see the light that it's moving towards, the body, like, it aligns with the mind. It's like, okay, that's where we're going. Cool. That's where we're going. Like the body doesn't detour you. The body doesn't try to like, oh no, the body's just neutral. So if that is the goal of the mind, it becomes the goal of the body. And then they are aligned in the same goal, which is a really cool thing. Paragraph 7. Corrective learning always begins with the awakening of spirit and the turning away from the belief in physical sight. Okay, do you remember this from not our last section, but the section before? So chapter 2, section 3, paragraph 3. Eventually, everyone begins to recognize, however dimly, that there must be a better way. As this recognition becomes more firmly established, it becomes a turning point. This ultimately reawakens spiritual vision, simultaneously weakening the investment in physical sight. Okay, so remember that? So this is saying corrective learning always begins with the awakening of spirit and the turning away from the belief in physical sight. So that turning point, like it said in 2 sections ago, that turning point is when you start to realize, however dimly, there must be a better way. The way I've been doing things isn't working. There must be a better way. So when you hit that turning point, that starts to awaken that spiritual vision and that connection to spirit, which also begins to weaken your trust in physical sight, that whatever you see is how things are. Our physical sight does not see true reality. Only spiritual sight can see reality as it is. Okay, so corrective learning, which is what we need to correct our mind, right? And our mind is the learner, not our body. Corrective learning always begins with the awakening of spirit and the turning away from the belief in physical sight. This often entails fear, which it also talked about in section 3. This often entails fear because you are afraid of what your spiritual sight will show you. I said before that the Holy Spirit cannot see error and is capable only of looking beyond it to the defense of atonement. There is no doubt that this may produce discomfort, yet the discomfort is not the final outcome of the perception. Okay, so if you recall in section 3, it talked about how spiritual sight, remember how it talked about the temple, and our bodies are the temple. But the temple is, the structure or the body is not what's important. It's the inner altar, which is like your soul inside of you, right? I believe. Correct me if you think there's another way to interpret that, because I suspect there might be. So the temple is the body, this outer structure, and that when we focus on beautiful structures or beautiful bodies or the beautiful acts that our bodies do, it's because of a fear. We're afraid to see in to the inner altar. And so this is talking about that same fear. As you start to move more towards spiritual sight, it can entail fear because you're afraid of what your spiritual sight will show you. Because your spiritual sight doesn't see the physical. It doesn't see the body or all the wonderful, good, service-oriented things that your body has done. It doesn't see those things. And we're like, oh shoot, if none of that counts, like if none of that actually matters, oh no. What are we going to find when we look inside, right? Like that's a little bit scary. What if they're like we work really hard to hide what's inside of us because we're afraid that we're lacking and that we're broken and that we're not good enough and unworthy. Okay. There is no doubt that this may produce discomfort, yet the discomfort is not the final outcome of the perception. When the Holy Spirit is permitted to look upon the defilement of the altar, because we have defiled our altars, we have covered our perfect, amazing, worthy, whole spirits in all sorts of illusions and misperceptions and have believed ourselves guilty of all sorts of awful stuff. So when the Holy Spirit is permitted to look upon the defilement of the altar, he also looks immediately toward the atonement. So kind of like, oh, defiled? Sweet. Like, here's my atonement cleaner. This is all we need. Nothing he perceives can induce fear. Nothing the Spirit sees in you can produce fear. Everything that results from spiritual awareness is merely channelized toward correction. Discomfort is aroused only to bring the need for correction into awareness. So all your illusions and misperceptions, they do create discomfort, especially when you actually look at them, when you actually see them for what they are. But that discomfort is all channelized towards correction. Like, okay, well, let's bring the atonement and correct it. Like there's no guilt, no, beating you down like, how could you? And you're so awful. And, look at this mess you made. It's none of that. It's just, oh, atonement, done. I don't know. It sounds so easy. It doesn't feel that easy, but it sounds easy. Okay, paragraph 8. The fear of healing arises in the end from an unwillingness to accept unequivocally that healing is necessary. Let me read that one more time. The fear of healing arises in the end. So a fear of healing. Why would we be afraid to be healed? It arises in the end from an unwillingness to accept unequivocally that healing is necessary. So I think that's kind of an ego thing. Like, oh no, I'm fine. No, I'm good. Like, I don't need to be healed. Move along. Like, don't look too closely here. I'm fine. And that's when the fear of healing comes, is when you don't think you need healing. And so you just want to brush it by. I think that's what that means. What the physical eye sees is not corrective, nor can error be corrected by any device that can be seen physically. Nothing physically can help us. Nothing physical. As long as you believe in what your physical sight tells you, your attempts at correction will be misdirected. The real vision is obscured because you cannot endure to see your own defiled altar. But since the altar has been defiled, your state becomes doubly dangerous unless it is perceived. And again, not dangerous long term, not dangerous permanently, because ultimately everyone is guaranteed to accept the atonement in the end. So it's not like, oh, you're in danger of losing your soul forever. I don't think it's that kind of danger. But it is really important for your own peace. Remember that it said that every child of God is entitled to the perfect comfort that comes from perfect trust. And so you are your state becomes doubly dangerous unless it is perceived, the defilement of the altar and this realization that I do need healing, and then you work to correct it and to heal. It's not a big deal. It's okay. So, paragraph 9. Healing is an ability that developed after the separation, before which it was unnecessary. So we only needed healing after we believed we became separated from God. Before that, nothing needed to be healed. Like all aspects of the belief in space and time, it is temporary. However, as long as time persists, healing is needed as a means of protection. This is because healing rests on charity, And charity, this is a definition of charity. Charity is a way of perceiving the perfection of another, even if you cannot perceive it in yourself. Isn't that a fascinating definition of charity? Charity was taught to me in my faith. Charity is the perfect love of Christ. And this is saying that charity is a way of perceiving the perfection of another, even if you cannot perceive it in yourself, which Christ perceives our perfection because he has spiritual vision and looks beyond the structure, the body, and sees directly to our altar where our perfection lies. So I guess they are kind of the same definition, just with a different words. Most of the loftier concepts of which you are capable now are time dependent. Charity is really a weaker reflection of a much more powerful love encompassment that is far beyond any form of charity you can conceive of as yet. So charity is like a watered down form of love that, because we can't even comprehend the love that truly exists, like the love that God has. We can't even comprehend it. So charity is like the watered down version that we're capable of right now. Charity is essential to right-mindedness in the limited sense in which it can now be attained. Paragraph 10. Charity is a way of looking at another as if he had already gone far beyond his actual accomplishments in time. Since his own thinking is faulty, he cannot see the atonement for himself, or he would have no need of charity. The charity that is accorded him is both an acknowledgement that he needs help and a recognition that he will accept it. Isn't that kind of cool? So you don't look at people and kind of like, oh, they're hopeless. Or, oh, they're lost. They're goners. Like there's nothing we can do for them. Charity is when you can look at someone and go, they need healing. They need help. And they're going to accept it. And not because you're going to force it on them, but just knowing that everyone's going to accept it. And there's no one who's lost forever. There's no one who is beyond help. I don't know. I just think that's really beautiful. Both of these perceptions clearly imply their dependence on time, making it apparent that charity still lies within the limitations of this world. I said before that only revelation transcends time. The miracle, as an expression of charity, can only shorten it. It must be understood, however, that whenever you offer a miracle to another, you are shortening the suffering of both of you. This corrects retroactively as well as progressively. That's an interesting thought, huh? Okay, and then it has like a subsection. So subsection A is titled Special Principles of Miracle Workers. We're almost done. Paragraph 11. The miracle abolishes the need for lower order concerns. Since it is an out of pattern time interval, because remember miracles shorten time, the ordinary considerations of time and space do not apply. When you perform a miracle, I will arrange both time and space to adjust to it. So this made me think, and I don't know if this is correct or not, but this made me think of in the New Testament when Christ is sending the apostles out to go preach. And he says, take no thought what ye shall eat or what ye shall drink or wherewithal you will be clothed. You know, basically all these things will be taken care of for you. So when it says the miracle abolishes the need for lower order concerns, I wonder if those are some of the lower order concerns it's talking about. Like, oh, like how am I going to feed and clothe my body and, you know, things like that. Those are lower order concerns. So when you are, the miracle abolishes the need for those things. And again, sometimes it's a really short time period that we are capable of performing miracles because it's only when we are in our right mind that we can perform miracles and help correct the minds of others. And so maybe when we're like, well, you know, I can't just not eat or drink or, you know, whatever. But I wonder if we could be in that right mindedness for extended periods of time, if either those lower order needs would be provided for us, like other people would be like, hey, let me feed you, hey, come stay at my place if you need a place to stay or whatever. You know what I mean? I think there are different ways that that could show up, but that was one that came to my mind. Okay, paragraph 12. A clear distinction between what is created and what is made is essential. We've talked about this before. What is created is eternal. What is made is basically a miscreation. And it's not technically real, and it definitely is not going to last beyond however long you believe it to be real. So, a clear distinction between what is created and what is made is essential. All forms of healing rest on this fundamental correction in level perception. All forms of healing rest on this fundamental correction in level perception. So when you can recognize that what is made is not actually real, that is part of healing. All healing has to do with recognizing what is real and what isn't, because that's right-mindedness, is recognizing what's real and what's not. All right, paragraph 13. Never confuse right and wrong-mindedness. Responding to any form of error with anything except a desire to heal is an expression of this confusion. So when you respond to the errors of others with anger, with fear, with vengeance, any of those things, you are confusing right and wrong-mindedness. That is not right-mindedness. So the only appropriate way to respond to error is with a desire to help heal. 14. The miracle is always a denial of this error, the one we just talked about, and an affirmation of the truth. Only right-mindedness can correct in a way that has any real effect. Only right-mindedness can correct in a way that has any real effect. So when we try and correct people using guilt, or using fear, or shame, or whatever, it's not going to have any real effect. Only right-mindedness, which is a desire to heal and comes from love and miracles, only that will have any real effect. Those other ways may have temporary effect, but it's not going to last. Pragmatically, what has no real effect has no real existence. Its effect, then, is emptiness. Being without substantial content, it lends itself to projection. So if it has no real effect, then it technically doesn't exist, which tracks, because in the very beginning it said that only where fear is, love is not there, but only love exists, so technically fear isn't real. So yeah, if you're using anything that's not with right-mindedness or love, then it has no real effect, which means it has no real existence. It's not real. So its effect then is emptiness. So at best, when you are using fear and guilt and all those things to try and get people to change, at best it's doing nothing. And at worst, it's lending itself to projection. So it's actually entrenching miscreation and incorrect beliefs. Oh, how often have I used that with my children? Like guilted them into doing something that I felt they needed to do. Oh man. Paragraph 15. The level adjustment power of the miracle induces the right perception for healing. Until this has occurred, healing cannot be understood. Forgiveness, listen to this, forgiveness is an empty gesture unless it entails correction. Without this, it is essentially judgmental rather than healing. Forgiveness. Okay. I think this is important to understand. So in case you didn't understand it, the level adjustment power of the miracle induces the right perception for healing. So the level adjustment, remember we talked about level confusion, which is where you think that the mind can somehow create issues in the body that you then have to fix at the body level, or that the body can create issues in the mind. Well, the body can't create, so that one's gone. And the mind can only create issues in the mind, but then the body responds to that. So you still fix it at the mind. And at no time are you fixing things at the body level. It's always fixing it at the mind level. Okay, so forgiveness is an empty gesture unless it entails correction. So when you believe someone has hurt you, technically that's not possible because only love exists. So you're just believing that they can have an effect on you when technically they can't unless you allow them to. So when you forgive someone, it is an empty gesture unless it entails correction at the mind level. If it doesn't, then it's essentially judgmental. You're saying, you hurt me, and I'm choosing to forgive you. But they can't hurt you. So you're just judging them and trying to be noble in an egocentric way and giving them forgiveness. So without correction, forgiveness is an empty gesture. Paragraph 16. Miracle-minded forgiveness is only correction. Miracle-minded forgiveness is only correction. It has no element of judgment at all. The statement, quote, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," close quote, in no way evaluates what they do. It is an appeal to God to heal their minds. There is no reference to the outcome of the error. That does not matter. And the way I understand this, which again, this is just my perspective, and there may be other ways, there probably are other ways, is when Christ was hanging on the cross and he said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." It says here he's asking God to heal their mind. They don't know what they're doing. They're not acting in right-mindedness, right? Please heal their mind. Help them to see correctly. But Christ wasn't saying that with the hope that God would hurry up and heal their mind so that they would get him off the cross and he could stop suffering. It was just, they're not thinking correctly. Please heal their minds because I love them and I know that they'll have that perfect comfort, right, that they're entitled to if their minds are healed. And it had nothing to do with the outcome of their error, whether or not they would hurry and get him down from the cross so he could stop suffering. Had nothing to do with that. It was simply because he recognized that their minds needed to be healed and asked for that for them. So if we are, so miracle-minded forgiveness is only correction. We're not asking them to be healed so that then they will make our lives better, I think is what this is saying. We're only worried, and worried isn't even the right word, but we're only concerned with the correction, with the healing for them, not because once they're healed, then our lives will get a lot better, even though they probably will. But even if they don't, that's not the point of the forgiveness. Does that make sense? 17, paragraph 17. The injunction, quote, "be of one mind," close quote, is the statement for revelation readiness. Being of one mind is a statement of revelation readiness, which remember is out of time. Revelation is the one thing we can have that takes us completely out of time. My request, quote, "do this in remembrance of me," close quote, is the appeal for cooperation from miracle workers. The two statements are not in the same order of reality. Only the latter, the remembrance of me, only the latter involves an awareness of time, since to remember is to recall the past in the present. Time is under my direction, but timelessness belongs to God. In time, we exist for and with each other. In timelessness, we coexist with God. Paragraph 18. You can do much on behalf of your own healing and that of others if, in a situation calling for help, you think of it in this way. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. And that is the end of this section. I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope you join me again, and I hope that you will comment and let me know if there was anything that stood out to you that was an aha moment, or a different way of interpreting things than how I interpreted it, or any questions or anything like that. I just would love to have a conversation. So, anyway, hope to see you next time.